The last owl I carved was over 2 years ago, so I was excited to get started on this 340-pound chunk of Brazilian soapstone. The stone itself is already quite unique, so the first task was deciding how I wanted to position the subject into the stone to get the most out of it, and to utilize the already existing natural shapes to my advantage. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Gable. I feel like I've been an artist my entire life, but it took me a solid decade of dedicated art creation before I actually started selling my work in a full-time capacity, which I've now been doing for the past 11 years. Here, I'm beginning to form that distinct shape of the barn owl face. I wanted to place the eyes a bit deeper into the eye sockets than with my last owl, as based on my observation, this is more true to nature and I assumed would actually help me capture that unique shape of the face more accurately. It is these subtle nuances that you can refine as you carve a particular subject more and more. By the way, welcome to my winter carving studio. You might notice a change in location from the large Italian marble polar bear I was working on in the summer. That's because I'm a Canadian artist working in central BC, Canada, and the winters get quite cold here. I decided to insulate a smaller studio. I find it's a lot easier to carve when I'm warm and comfortable, particularly when I'm working on those more intricately detailed areas like the eyes, which become more challenging with frozen fingers. I like the task of carving these spherical shapes freehand. I'm using my Dremel here, but I don't actually have it turned on. I'm literally just scratching away the stone. I jump back and forth between each eye, keeping them balanced and at the same level of completion. I don't want to completely finish one without having touched the other. Working them together makes it easier to keep them nice and aligned. The eyes and face of my stone sculptures typically will have the most detail and refinement, and is where I push to bring out that character and life in my work. As I move into the beak, a personality really starts to come out. It's always fun to see this happening because on one level, I don't really try and control this too much. Yes, I have a vision for the piece, but in this case, the expression was a lot lighter than I was expecting for an owl, which was actually a pleasant surprise. I can't wait to see how the personality of this piece will evolve and mature as I bring out the rest of the form. Now it's time to move down into the rest of the body and begin deciding how I'm going to be positioning the feet and what other base elements I would like to add in this piece. If you're interested in collecting my work or have any other questions, feel free to DM me. As always, thank you for following and taking part in this ever-evolving journey of being an artist in this world. I've just been reflecting on my life and what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing as an artist. And one reason I do what I do and continue dedicating myself to building my art career and life in the arts is because it's quite an extraordinary life. And what else would be the point? Like, why are we here? What are we doing? Like, on some level, I could have maybe taken a different route, maybe focused more on a job when I was younger that would have gotten me a lot of money. But, early on, I just wanted to be free. I was a kid. I followed my passions and I wanted to be an artist. But as an adult, you sort of develop some quote unquote common sense or sense. And then you start looking at, well, I could do this route. I could go become an electrician or go into the trades, start a business that is more in demand. Like, people don't need art. And so one question that comes up is, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? And on some level, it's because I've gotten this far and it doesn't make sense to turn back now. Like, I'm 43 years old. I've been dedicating my entire life for the most part to art, and I've gotten this far. And now I'm like, well, what happens if I keep going? What am I able to create? What would my art become? What would my life become? And even not like what would my art become, but like what kind of life do I want to create? And can my expression as an artist help support that life? And so that's one of the reasons why I keep going, because I'm curious to see, well, what can I create? And that in that question, what can I create? What kind of life do I want? What kind of life does a person want? Do I want to work 9 to 5? Do I want, the freedoms and flexibilities that being an artist can produce and can create? And also, like, even that question of, well, what kind of life do I want to create? I heard someone talking about what we see on Instagram and social media and online is like such a tiny percentage of what people's lives are actually like out there. And there's so many people living such interesting lives that no one really sees those because they're not popular, right? All we're looking at is these edited versions of like a couple versions of what you can do for your life.
you know, what is our meaning of freedom? What represents freedom to us? You got to really ask yourself those questions. What does freedom mean to you? What does a living expression mean to you? Like, what do you want to create as your life? And so that's really been an interesting question for me, is like, well, what kind of lives are possible? And for me as an artist, I'm like, wow, this is really fascinating. I get to do something that I actually enjoy doing and make money from it and help support myself and my family and like create, you know, my goals and visions through this vehicle. Is that possible? I think it's just, you know, and that journey has created a really interesting and fun and enjoyable life. And I'm like, I don't want to trade that in for some sort of like security, because it's like, well, what are we doing with our lives? You know, like, what am I doing here? Like, you got your one life that you're in, you got to make the most of it, I guess you could say, right? You know, my version of what an interesting life is not going to be what yours is. It's not going to be what even we see. And I don't want it to be what we see online. I don't want it to be what you're just copying some other person's life or some, you know, I want to create a life that has never been lived or is coming from inside me, you know, because I want to exercise my creative expression as a life form. What is our potential as life? I'm here on this planet, I'm a piece of life, you know, am I stuck just acting out these really generic actions and that's going to be my life? Or can I create something that's never been seen before? You know, can I do something that's never been done before? Like, as a question, like, what is our power as a life form, you know? Because I often feel like I'm stuck in, you know, my pre-programming, my programmed ideas and limitations of who I am. What does it mean to be human? And also within that, you know, like, there's such simplicity in the meaning of life, you can say. Like, I got back into playing hockey again. I used to play it when I was a kid and I really loved doing it. We finished the game and I was walking off the floor and my son, who's 3.5 years old, was sitting there on a chair at my hockey bag and he was looking at me and he was so happy to see me. And, you know, we just played a game and I got some goals and I was feeling good. It was like a good workout. And then I get to see my son there staring at me, waving at me. And I'm like, well, what else is there? Like, it's like these simple connection points and things that we do with our life, it just get overlooked. There's a simplicity to the meaning of life. So I'm very aware of that. And I do want that to be a part of what I'm doing, nature, access, connection to nature, but also not to limit myself either. So anyways, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm carving this owl right now. That's why I'm making this video, because I feel like there's something here and I just want to get in there and dig in there and see what I can find and see what I can unearth. Hey, here's something different. If I can do this, maybe you can do something completely different that you never thought you could do. A little bit of a different voiceover for this video, but I hope everyone's doing well and going for your vision, you know, going for it, because what else are we doing here?